to the latest installment of the Ninten-Dadcast. So, yeah, we're kind of circling back to movies. I know this is mostly video games and toys, but it's like the movie industry for me, I felt it's broken. I've had discussions with friends, family, colleagues about just the state of the movie industry, and you get a lot of opinions on why movies are failing right now. I have my thoughts, other people have their thoughts. It's kind of one of those things that no matter who you talk to, you're going to get an array of different opinions. So it's one of those things where it's this kind of topic that I'm going to discuss. I'm applying it to movies and TVs, but it can also work for video games and toys and stuff, whatever. So I mean, let's delve into it. This one is more scripted and not off the cuff like my other podcasts are. Because I wanted to make sure I articulated myself appropriately for this, because I didn't want to be taken in the wrong way for anything. So that's kind of where I'm coming from when it comes to this, where it's going to be more scripted, teleprompter kind of thing, as opposed to what I normally do where I just go off the cuff. So with that said, oh no, I messed up. With that said, here we go. So it's one of those things like I'm going to go in the way back machine of the early or the late 2000s, early 2010s, and the rise of the MCU, which for me kind of kicked off a renaissance of Hollywood blockbusters, something we hadn't really seen since about the mid-90s. I mean, not since like Jurassic Park, Terminator 2, Independence Day, has Hollywood really had this boom of summer after summer of just blockbuster hits, record-breaking things like that. It really, like the 2000s didn't really have that, and Iron Man in the MCU Phase 1 kind of kicked all that off, like started that back up again, where we're going to see that trend of uptick. So with that, again, kind of scripted but kind of off the cuff, okay? So when things like that happen, Hollywood, they want a copycat. It's kind of like people say about the NFL, it's a copycat league. Well, Hollywood's a copycat entertainment industry. I mean, they see what one studio does that makes them a lot of money. They want to have their own version of that. So it was one of those things. The first couple phases of the MCU worked out really well for Disney and movie theaters, just because the budgets for that first phase was pretty low and the ticket sales were high. So you got a lot of foot traffic into the movie theaters and people buying snacks, buying tickets, buying popcorn. It was great. So Hollywood, the rest of Hollywood, wanted to replicate that. And as Hollywood does, they look at the wrong things to replicate. This is not new in Hollywood. When Star Wars was a huge success, we got a lot of terrible copycat sci-fi movies. Same thing with Jaws. We got a lot of we got Piranha and like different fish in the water horror movies. E.T. also spawned off friendly alien movies. So it's like a tale as old as time. Like producers seeing a hit movie, they want to make their own. And a lot of the times, instead of taking the hard work to reverse engineer why that movie was a success, they just take the surface level things and say, hey, we can do this too. I mean, for instance, circling back to the MCU, one of the keys to its success and part of its downfall was its connected universe. Like, we got Iron Man, and at the end of Iron Man, we got to meet Nick Fury, who talked about a bigger universe. Then we got Universal doing the Hulk, and we got Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark at the end of that. Goes into Iron Man 2, I think was the next one. Then we got Thor, and then we got Captain America, and they're all interwoven, interconnected, and it was really fun, and it was done in service of a greater universe, but didn't hinder the stories being told. So it was one of those things like Marvel hired some good creative people like Jon Favreau for Iron Man, Joe Johnston with the first Avenger, Captain America, and James Gunn on Guardians of the Galaxy. They let these creatives create, and they would just have little tidbits to connect the universe. It wasn't something overbearing like we'd later get in the Marvel movies, but just enough to keep us wanting more, to where Hulk felt like a sequel to Iron Man 2 felt a sequel to Hulk, Thor feeling a sequel, and so on. So it was just kind of like we got those little bits and pieces, and this pretty much kind of worked together into the first Avengers movie all the way through Infinity War and Endgame. But of course, because of that success, you had your copycats. So you saw, the perfect example of a copycat would be Warner Brothers with their DCEU. They were already making Man of Steel when the first Iron Man came out, and it wasn't really going to be a connected universe. They had tapped Christopher Nolan and his brother to help with the production of Man of Steel because they wanted to have a recreation of their own success with the Dark Knight trilogy. They wanted a more grounded, gritty, realistic Superman movie because they kind of thought that's what audience wanted. Again, seeing the success of one franchise and taking the wrong idea from that franchise to replicate in something new. That's not Superman. He's not dark and gritty. He's hope. He's bright colors. He's blue and red. And he's all these things. He's not dark and gritty. But anyway, so they see the success and they want to replicate their own and they want to jumpstart it. They don't want to do all the hard work that Marvel did to lay the groundwork for the MCU. They wanted to jumpstart it. So they tried to tap Christopher Nolan again to bring back Christian Bale so that Dark Knight universe would go into the Man of Steel universe and be cohesive, which honestly I think that would have worked out better than what we got because the tones were very similar, the worlds were very similar, and they didn't have to create a new Batman. So it probably would have helped more. But again, that's not what ended up happening. Nolan didn't want to do it. Christian Bale wasn't going to come back without Nolan, so they kind of were left to their own devices and had to recast. So still, at this point, DC could have given us a Batman movie, a Wonder Woman movie, an Aquaman movie. We wouldn't necessarily need like a Cyborg movie or a Flash movie. Those would have helped, but we definitely didn't need all those because, I mean, the MCU for the most part, we got origin stories for the 4 main Avengers, and then Black Widow was in Iron Man 2. We got her origin there, and we just kind of got a brief glimpse of Hawkeye in the first Thor. So it was one of those things you didn't have to have all the team members get their own movie, but having more than half have their own origins in movies from the start would have been better instead of the CCTV footage we've got of Aquaman, Cyborg, and the Flash in Batman vs. Superman or Superman vs. Batman, whatever it was called. So it wasn't really a good way to start it because going into the first Avengers, we had already grown to love the Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, Black Widow, and we were getting to know Hawkeye. So he was like our new character now. And plus we knew Coulson, and we loved Coulson. And when Coulson died, we were all sad because we felt for that character. But going into the Justice League movie, we really only knew Superman. We kind of knew Batman. We kind of knew Wonder Woman because they didn't get their own movies. What we really knew about Batman going into that is stuff we carried with us from the comic books and from the Dark Knight trilogy, not something set up in this universe as Batman. So that's where it kind of fell. Like, we weren't really invested in these characters. We were invested in the IPs, but not the characters that we saw on screen. And then, Justice League kind of falls flat. There was, behind the scenes stuff. Zack Snyder, his family troubles, the tragedy that bestowed upon him to where he left the film, and then Josh Whedon came in and tried to weave something together. And again, Warner Brothers, seeing the success of Marvel, instead of going with the tone Zack Snyder had set, they wanted Josh Whedon to marvel it up, make it quippy and funnier than what it was. And I don't particularly like Zack Snyder's version of Superman and things like that, but his hindsight version of Justice League, because he got to go back and redo some stuff to make his version that later became on HBO Max, is better than the cobbled together stew that Josh Whedon put out. So they should have just stuck with that tone, maybe had Josh Whedon punch up a couple things. But it was definitely one of those things. Warner Brothers was rushing to have their own version of the MCU, and they're rebooting it. I mean, Marvel hasn't even rebooted yet. They've had their struggles, but they're still got the core universe going, where DC, we're getting a reboot with Marvel's James Gunn, because again, Warner Brothers is tapping a Marvel creative to try to fix their other messes. And then of course we have other failed interwoven universes like Universal's The Dark Universe, and even Fast and the Furious, as successful as that main line's been, they've been trying to do some offshoot side movies that just have kind of fallen flat as well. So again, Hollywood trying to copy something, they took the wrong idea to what made something successful, to where the early MCU movies were about creatives creating stories that we liked, creating empathetic characters that we felt for and got to know and we really wanted to see. And they were like, oh no, it's the cinematic universe, that's what people want, so they tried to do together. The exception to this rule, of course, is the Godzilla King Kong Monsterverse. Though that's more spectacle. We like seeing giant kaijus destroy cities and each other, as opposed to good movies. I thought 2014 Godzilla was pretty good, and Kong was pretty good. Also, Monarch is fun with Wyatt Russell and Kurt Russell. Those two are great in that. But overall, the quality of the movies is so-so. But it's a fun spectacle, so at least those make box office money. So, I mean, Endgame, Infinity War, that was the peak of not only just, I think, superhero genre, but also summer blockbusters as a whole. I mean, making $1 billion, that's a lot of money. And Hollywood, I think, expected exponential growth. Okay, we made $1 billion here, we'll make $1.2 billion next year, $1.3 billion, $1.4 billion. But $1 billion's a lot of money. Like, people don't realize going from $100,000 to $1 million isn't that much, but going from $100 million to $1 billion is astronomical. I'll see if I can find a chart and I'll include it in the edit just to show the difference in numbers. So, I mean, once you make $1 billion, it's hard to go higher than that. It's really, really tough when we're talking movie tickets and stuff like that, because there's only so much you can charge for a movie ticket, and there's only so many people who are going to go see a movie at a given time. Most people will see it once. So let's just say $10 a movie ticket. If every person in the world bought a ticket, that's 7 billion people. You're looking at a max you can get at $70 billion probably. Maybe a couple people go see it more than once. But that's if everybody in the world saw your movie. So, I mean, there is a limit to how much a movie can make. And $1 billion is pretty much that limit. Because, I mean, we've seen raising costs in movies, raising costs in movie theater tickets. That has had the opposite effect of people not going to see movies, because I have a family of 4. If we want to go see a movie, it's probably going to cost $60 to $70 just for movie tickets. To where if I wait either for streaming or just to buy it digitally in a few months, I pay $15, $20 for my entire family to see that movie. Plus the food at home, we're not spending another $30, $40 on food. It's all inclusive in our house. So, I mean, Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, everything peaked at $1 billion. And ballooning cost, ballooning everything is not going to save the movie industry at all. So it's just one of those things that people do not, or the studios kind of don't realize. It's just, there's only so much money you can make. So Hollywood has tried to figure out a way to make more money. And the way they've gone about doing this is just kind of, we have a core audience of people. So that core audience, they assume we're going to go see everything. If you're a Star Wars fan, if a Star Wars movie is out, you're going to go see it. If you're a Marvel fan, a new Marvel movie's out, you're going to go see it. Same with DC and all these other franchises. So what they're thinking, what their mindset is, and I know this is a contentious subject with a lot of people, because what we've gotten from this is, quote unquote, a message being sent by Hollywood to be more diverse and things like that. We have more representation in movies, be it race, gender, sexual orientation, and just various other things that I don't want to say things, but just very other identifiable concepts we have as humans being represented in movies. And as a whole, that's not bad at all. Like, having more representation, more diversity is generally benefits society. I mean, look at America, for example. That was the whole melting pot experiment that America was. And there's a reason why it is considered one of the best countries in the world, and that's because of our diversity, because we've gotten the best and the brightest to emigrate here and help us with technology, architecture, infrastructure, things like that. So, I mean, diversity on a whole is never a bad thing. But here's what happens. Oh, let me touch on this first. When I say corporations aren't trying to send a message, I don't think they are. Even Disney, who seems to be at the center of all this culture war when it comes to entertainment, Disney as a corporation doesn't care if you're white, black, gay, lesbian, straight, how you identify as a gender, if you're asexual, pansexual, whatever. They don't care. They care about your dollars, though. Then that's what they want. Now, the creatives, the writers, directives, producers, artists, that's a different story. I'm not going to speak for any of them. I'm not going to assume. Some have said things in interviews and articles. I'm focusing mostly on the corporations and what the corporations as a whole do wrong when it comes to making a blockbuster. So this is not talking about Leslie Headley or I can't think of the guy who's in charge of Doctor Who now. Like their personal views on entertainment and what they want to do. That's not what I'm talking about here. I am focusing on like Hollywood as an industry. So with that said, getting back to the point of like Star Wars and the MCU, the majority, I would say, this is my opinion, I'm sure there's statistics out there, but I would say the majority of those fans, especially the initial fans, you know, from the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, are male, white, and straight. I'm saying, and this is just kind of me spitballing here, and I know that's how like Hollywood views the fan base of those franchises. So Disney's assuming like these white straight males are going to go see Star Wars no matter what. They're going to go see Marvel no matter what. So like, well, they're already coming. We need to get more. We need to get people of different colors to come. We need to get people of different nationalities. We need to get different genders, different sexual orientations to come. So instead of creating characters with those identifiable qualities, they just simply will just plug a character in, race or gender swap, sexuality swap a character, and call it a day. Because they're like, this character's already established, it's already got fans. If we make this character more diverse, those core fans are going to stick with the character, and then we'll get new fans. Sadly, that's not how it works. That people do like to be represented, and they do like to see like their qualities come up on TV, video games, movies, such things like that. Like as a lefty, my favorite video character is Link. He just so happens to be left-handed, and I love that about Link. Link was always left-handed. I'm left-handed. Awesome. When Twilight Princess on the Wii came out, because the majority of the world is right-handed, and will be using the Wiimote with their right hand, they switched from being right-handed, and they've kept it even after motion controls. And a little bit devastation to me as a lefty, because I always like seeing left-handed characters. I always point that out in movies, like, oh, that person's left-handed, kind of thing like that, because we represent, I think, 10% of the population of the world, so I always find it fun when I see another lefty. So again, representation, I always find it cool. Again, very rarely, unless it's a sports movie, does the handedness of a character matter to who the character is, which is kind of what Hollywood forgets with these diverse characters. They tend to make the character all about their diversity. If they're black, that's the identity of the character. If they're gay, that's the identity of the character. Not, that's just a part of who this greater person is. Because if you meet anyone more diverse than you, whether they're different skin color, different nationality, sexuality, gender, it's only a part of who they are. But Hollywood doesn't take the time to establish these empathetic, deep characters. They're just like, all right, this character's black, this character's gay, and that's their character. So it does not help when you're trying to rein in all these audiences. And sure, there will be people of these fan bases who are racist and homophobes, to where if you do any diversity, regardless of how good or bad the character is, they're going to be upset. I mean, those people exist. I don't think that the majority of these fan bases at all, but those people do exist, and it's one of those things to where they're a very loud minority, and they shouldn't be taken that seriously, and you really shouldn't give them that much credence. I don't even like converse with those people, because you're not going to change their mind. You're not going to have a civil discussion. Things won't change. But yeah, that's the problem with Hollywood. They look for those quick fixes. They're thinking, okay, the majority of our fan base is white males, so if we just make more diverse characters for these franchises, or gender swap, or race swap, or sexuality swap, we'll get more fans in there. And that will work initially. Like, again, we all like to see ourselves represented. So, you know, like I mentioned with me being a lefty. But yeah, people of color, if they see like their race in a Marvel movie, they're like, oh, I want to check that out. Or again, people of a different gender or sexuality, they see someone of their gender or sexuality as the lead in a Marvel movie, Star Wars movie, they're like, oh, I want to check that out. But the problem is when you make that the identity of the character, then people are going to check out right away because A, the character's not deep or empathetic, the story's not very good, the film's not good, and what have you. So where these initial people check it out because they're being represented, they quickly check back out. They check in and they check back out because you didn't give them a good story. And that's the same with the core fan base. I mean, you can make diverse characters in that fan base, but you got to make them good characters. You got to make good stories to go along with these characters, and that core fan base will stick with you. I touched on in my Acolyte podcast about how I'm just kind of done with Disney Star Wars, not because of any diversity issues or inclusivity or anything like that. It's just they're not giving me good stories. It's not worth my time or my money to watch these movies and shows. So I just don't. I'm checked out as a fan. I'm apathetic towards it. I'm not super excited for them, so I'm just not going to check them out. Same with kind of the Marvel movies of late. They just haven't been very good. Like the Spider-Man movie was fun. What else was there? There was another one since Endgame. Oh, Guardians 3. Those were good movies. Thor: Love and Thunder, terrible. It's just a bad movie as a whole, which hurts me because Thor's my favorite MCU character. So it's just one of those things. You got to give us good movies. And just kind of touching on like diversity in these two franchises, Star Wars and the MCU, like good ways to go about that where you're not gender or race swapping and things like that. Think of like Finn in The Force Awakens and Falcon, Sam Watson. Shoot, I'm losing Sam's last name. But Falcon and Finn in those, both black characters, both deep, empathetic characters. John Boyega and Anthony Mackie do a great job with their characters. Those are very charismatic actors, and you definitely like really feel for the characters, and you get to like the characters and things like that. And you're not even thinking of them as black characters. I know there was talk of a black stormtrooper when The Force Awakens came out, and if the Empire, which it's the First Order, not the Empire, would have that. But I mean, the backstory for Finn is he was conscripted as a child, kind of like slavery, into the First Order to be a stormtrooper, and he was very moralistically opposed to the First Order, and you see that play out in the first couple scenes of that. And it's really good writing by J.J. Abrams and Stan Kasdan. They gave us a really good character who just happened to be black, so that wasn't his identity. His identity was this child who grew up in the First Order as a stormtrooper who did not like the random killing and conquering that the First Order did, and he had a real moral dilemma about being a part of this machine and trying to break away. So really good character. Same with Sam Falcon. I mean, he's a black character in the comic book, black character in the movies, and he's Captain America's friend. He's a war veteran. He holds in the MCU. I don't read a lot of Captain America comics, so I'm not familiar with that whole universe. Like with Sam and Bucky, I know the basics, but I don't know all the details. Most of what I know of those characters comes from the MCU and watching the cartoons as a kid. So yeah, he works with veterans who suffer from PTSD, and he kind of helps Cap with that and helps integrate Cap into society in Winter Soldier. That was the second Cap movie, right? Winter Soldier. And so like a good basis for a character, again, a character that is not his identity is not based on his race or anything like that. He is his own person with all kinds of hopes and dreams, and you empathize with him and you follow him and things like that. So it's a really good way to build a character, and you do it the right way because you start with a character first, and then you cast actors and things like that, and you have a character you like, much like you like Tony Stark or Steve Rogers or Thor. We've built this character, and this character happens to be white, this character happens to be black, happens to be male, happens to be female, but we're empathizing with the character. That's how we identify. We identify with the hopes and dreams of that character. We see ourselves in their personalities, not their physical appearance, kind of thing like that. So that is the hard but creative way to make diverse characters, is you make them that way. You make a good character that we want to empathize with, we want to grow with, we want to see where they go, and so on. And kind of on the flip of that, I'm going to switch real quick to Masters of the Universe Revelations Season 1, which came on Netflix and came with a lot of controversy. Overall, I didn't mind the story, like Teela going on a search to bring back He-Man and the magic to save Eternia. That whole deconstruction of Masters of the Universe, I didn't mind. I mean, I didn't mind at all. There was one thing they did that perplexed me, was the race swap of King Grayskull. And not even that they race swapped him. Masters of the Universe is a very white cartoon action figure line with a couple diversity sprinkled here and there, but mostly white. And so, I mean, modern era, you want to have a more diverse thing. So they race swapped King Grayskull and made him black. In and of itself, that's pretty harmless. However, when there was a Q&A about it, one of the showrunners, not Kevin Smith, another showrunner, was asked about that and asked, hey, instead of race swapping, why didn't you just create a new black character for that universe who could be a strong character? And I'm paraphrasing here, but that creator basically said that they didn't think fans would accept a new black character in the Masters of the Universe, and that they just didn't think that character would be accepted, so they just decided to race swap King Grayskull because they already had an established, accepted character, and they just made him black. To me, that's lazy writing. You're not taking the time to create a new character for us to enjoy and fall in love with and go on adventures with. You just race swapped a character. And what also further hurts that kind of notion, what the showrunner said was, Masters of the Universe did have a very popular black character in Clampchamp. He's very, I know especially among the action figure collecting group, like that was one of the harder figures to find when it first came out for the Masters of the Universe origin figures. People were buying up Clampchamp left and right, and he's in Revelations for like 30 seconds and they kill him off. Like he bars the door when these like Skeletor zombie things are coming in, and he gets killed like right off the bat. So it was one of those things, like you had a popular black character that the fans loved in your show, and then you just kill him off in 30 seconds and you race up King Grayskull because you said there's not enough diversity in Masters of the Universe. It's kind of like, what? So it's just kind of one of those things, again, that's lazy writing on Hollywood's part. Instead of building up a character, they just take a built-up character and change them to suit what they want to do. So that's kind of a lesson learned. And again, overall, Masters of the Universe Revelations, I think is fine. I need to check out Season 2. I haven't had the opportunity yet. But again, that's just kind of one of those weird things that Hollywood does where they contradict themselves and they make them seem less credible. So it goes again back to the laziness. But kind of circling back to the MCU and the character of Falcon. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, when that was announced, I was so excited for that because I think Sam and Bucky were two of the best side characters in Civil War, with just kind of their competition to see who was Steve's best friend. I thought that was great, and I felt teaming them up together in their own series was going to be great because I thought it was going to be like a buddy cop style genre. I thought it was going to be, 40, kind of akin to 48 Hours, more so than Lethal Weapon, but that same kind of, we've got two heroes, they're kind of different in the way they go about doing things, and I thought that was going to be a really fun movie, but instead we got this weird political drama that was kind of half-baked, that I think because of COVID they kind of scrapped some things, inserted some things, and we just got this really weird drama that had its moments. Like anytime Anthony Mackie and what's the actor who played Bucky? Give me a second. Darn it, it's not. Anytime Sam and Bucky were together, that was gold. And Wyatt Russell's great as fake Captain America. I can't think of that character's name either. It's been a while. But anytime Sam and Bucky were together, I loved it. That was great. It was everything else that kind of sucked. So it could, I think it would have worked and elevated the character. But yeah, but Falcon becoming Captain America, I thought was a great evolution of the character. And not really, I know a lot of people take it as a race swap, but it really wasn't. It was kind of built that way because Captain America was going to need a successor, especially when you're doing movies and actors age out. Instead of recasting the actors, an actor gets too expensive, or he ages out, or just doesn't want to do it anymore. Boom. If it's a major role like Captain America, you have another person step in. And I know a lot of people want to see Bucky Cap when Bucky becomes Captain America, but I actually like the Winter Soldier as his own character, and Sam taking the role of Captain America better than vice versa. And kind of the way I feel about Batman, as much as a kid I want to see Dick Grayson take over the role, I like him better as Nightwing than ever as Batman. So someone else can fill the role in Batman if they ever do something like that. But yeah, it's just kind of, it is one of those things. Representation in movie and shows, diversity, that's always good. I mean, we don't need to focus on the diversity, just make good shows. And, like, for instance, take something like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, a beloved sitcom from the 90s. Everyone loved it. Cosby Show also. I know Bill Cosby's kind of canceled now, but just want to use that example, where the predominant, pretty much all of the cast is black. But it's not what that's about. I mean, it does deal with black issues, don't get me wrong. So that's nice that it brings that to the forefront. But it's good characters that you love and empathize with, and they just happen to be a different color from you, possibly, or a different gender from you. But it starts with good character writing, and then you build from there. And it's not that audiences don't accept diversity. They don't accept bad writing. They don't accept diversity for diversity's sake. Give us good characters. Give us a reason to like these diverse characters. Don't just say, hey, we need more diversity in Star Wars, so here's diversity. Take the time to build these characters and make them characters that we're going to love and cherish, like we do Luke, Han, and Leia. Same with the MCU, like we do Thor, Iron Man, Spider-Man, things like that. You do that. Like, Spider-Man's another perfect example of Miles Morales. Some contention at first when they created Miles Morales, but he was a very well fleshed out character. A lot of people love that character, and he's one of the more popular Marvel characters now. He has his 2 own animated movies, his own video game, kind of thing like that, and people love Miles. So it's one of those things, if you put in the work, Hollywood, to make these characters likable, and that characters we're going to grow with, empathize with, things like that, people will accept your diversity. You just make good movies. That's the core of it. You make the good movies, and then we're gonna enjoy. We're consuming your product, because movies these days are a product. They're not art forms anymore. We don't get those mid-budget fun movies like we used to. We get indie films and we get blockbusters. There's very little in between these days that go to theater. But basically, to sum all this up, I'm gonna quote Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park, where he was berating him, and he said, "You stood on the shoulders of genius to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it, you packaged it, and you slapped it on a plastic lunchbox." And if that doesn't describe modern Hollywood in a nutshell, I don't know what does, because all they're doing is taking popular IPs created by geniuses, and they just want to make a quick buck with it. So they're throwing shit at the wall, seeing what sticks to make that money. And that's all it is. Like I said, filmmakers, actors aside, those people might be trying to push a message or something, but the corporations, they are not. They are trying to push their message, and that message is spend money. So in the end, choose where you're going to spend your money. If Disney's not making the films you want to see, don't go see them. Don't even hate see them so you can get the clout. Don't talk about them on Twitter. Just ignore them. It's kind of like that Simpsons Halloween episode, where all the advertisements were coming around killing everybody. If you just ignore it, it goes away. Same thing with movies and TV shows. If we don't talk about them, if we don't go see them, they'll change, because they want to make money. So if they're not making money with the current way Disney and Marvel are going, they're going to switch gears. Like, look at the DCEU. Warner Brothers is switching gears because the DCEU was not making money. So they're changing it. They got a whole new creative structure for there, and it's all new coming around. So, I mean, that's how Hollywood works. If you don't like what's being put out there, don't rent it, don't stream it, don't go see it, don't hate watch it. I know people do that for content, but the majority of people don't. So if you just ignore it and don't even talk about it, then it will go away, and they'll okay, what do people like? Oh, they like the original trilogy. They'll make stuff more like the original trilogy. They'll make stuff more like phase 1 and 2 of Marvel movies. So go see what you like. If you don't like it, just ignore it. Eventually it goes away, and we might get good stuff again. So go see good movies. Don't go see bad movies. That's basically what I'm saying. See the good movies. Watch the good TV shows, not the bad stuff. So on that note, thank you for hanging out with me. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Don't like, but subscribe. But yeah, interact. We'll have some fun with this. I think it's a good discussion point of what I think's wrong with Hollywood. I think they're just lazy at this point. They're not making art anymore. They're making a product. And if we don't like the product and we ignore the product, they'll make a new product. And maybe they'll hit on some stuff that we like and we'll enjoy seeing. So take care. Enjoy the podcast. Come back and see some of my gameplays and some of my other tutorials. And have a great day. Bye.